Hello, my literary luminaries, and welcome back to another Top 5 Thursday. Today's topic is your top 5 books that deal with hard topics. And it's funny, I was looking at the Goodreads group for this, and everybody in there was like, oh, I could write all about these books by this author, and I've forgotten her name already, so I'm going to go double check that so that I don't completely sound like an idiot. Ellen Hopkins. Everyone was talking. It was like, oh, I've got 5 Ellen Hopkins books I can write about that. I'm sitting there going, who? Who is Ellen Hopkins? It turns out that she wrote the Crank trilogy, which, if I can remember how to do it, I will put up a picture of the cover somewhere over probably one of my hands. And I've actually been meaning to read those, but I have not yet. So, without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. I'm going to go with the completely obvious one that also got mentioned on the Goodreads topic, but my number 1 has to be The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And if nobody sees this coming in everybody's BookTube video today, I don't know what to tell you. Fault in Our Stars, as I've said before, is a book that my good friend Denise absolutely told me I needed to read. And I don't always like that. You know, someone's like, oh, you have to read this. I'm like, I don't have to do anything. Excuse you. But I heard a lot of people saying good things about it. It sounded interesting. I wanted to read John Green. So I picked up Fault in Our Stars. And as I've said, I ended up crying miserably in a corner by the end. But again, I mean, we're talking about cancer in children. That's rough. Like, cancer's rough in any case. But especially when you're dealing with, like, these are kids that are, like, in high school, beginning of college, whenever. These are young people with, you know, decades of life in front of them. And we're talking about a book that steals that from them. That's really rough. And I know that this book means a great deal to John, because he's been very open about why he wrote Fault in Our Stars, who he sort of devoted that to. There's no secret about that, and I think that really carries through as well. Number 2. Number 2 is a book that I just read. I know that the review went up recently. Is it on here? Yes, it went up on the 6th of this month. And that is This Is Where It Ends by Marika Nijkamp. This one, it's got a lot of mixed reviews on Goodreads because of the way it approaches this, but it is a story about a school shooting. And it covers what goes on during the shooting through the eyes of 4 different characters, all of which have their each unique connection back to the shooter. And in classic fashion for our culture, I was completely fascinated by this book when I heard about it, because we have a tendency to both not want to talk about it and be obsessed with every detail. And, you know, we feel like that there's something wrong about being fascinated with it, but I've made no, you know, excuses about the fact that I love psychology. I think psychology is fascinating. And so looking into the psyche of a school shooting, now granted, we'd never see it from the shooter's perspective, and I'm glad of that, and I said that in my review, because I think it'd be far too easy to simplify and thus gloss over a lot of why it happens. But we see the psyche of the shooter and the victims and the people in the school and, like, the repercussions of it. And we see all of that sort of butterfly effect. And it was an absolutely fascinating book. I really, really enjoyed it. And it's still one that's going to live in the back of my brain for a while, because it's rough, and there's a lot of very difficult things to sort of grasp in there, and that's what I like to see in fiction, and something I wish I saw less of in real life. Number 3. Number 3 is a book I picked up on a whim, I believe at the same time that I bought Daughter of Smoke and Bone, simply because it was something that sort of stood out to me on the shelf. It looked interesting, and I said, hey, why not? And that is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. And this book deals with suicide of a young person. And as someone who has struggled with depression, who still struggles with depression, who knows the darkness of suicidal thoughts, this is another book that takes a very interesting approach to it, because it takes place after the suicide and sort of as the explanation of how she got to that point. And it's another example of sort of butterfly effect logic, is how one tiny event over here can explode into something so much bigger that nobody expected or intended, and it brings all sorts of people that didn't realize they were, part of this, and say, no, you had a hand in this too. I really, really like the way that Asher approaches this. I like the methodology through which he tells the story, and I think it's very real by the end of it. It's another one that got some sort of mixed reviews on Goodreads of people that don't like the way it was portrayed, think that it simplifies everything, thinks that it sugarcoats things, and I have to disagree with that. I think it deals with the concept very well, but it's a very powerful book, and it's one that makes you think. And much like This Is Where It Ends, it's something that I like to see explored in fiction, if for no other reason than maybe we can see it less in real life so that we understand it a bit better. Number 4, I am taking it back to a classic, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Mockingbird deals with racism, really, and ostracization. I said that word wrong. Being ostracized. There we go. And it's something that we don't necessarily think of so much as, this is a difficult topic for today. But if you look at the news, this is still clearly something that we are struggling with. And either through the character of Tom Robinson or Boo Radley, we see sort of how the other is treated. And, granted, Tom's, shall we say, is a bit more obvious, given that it is a race issue in his case. Boo's is just sort of the strange guy that lives next door and you're not quite sure what's going on there. And in the end, we see that they both mean well, that, sometimes the bad guy is the one hidden in plain sight. And again, I can never speak enough love for Atticus Finch, because he's such a fantastic character. And he gives both Tom and Boo the benefit of the doubt. And in the end, that serves everybody well, especially Jem and Scout. And it's just a nice classic look at segregation, I guess. But not only just of race, but in general. And it's fantastic. And honestly, if you know me by now, you should know that if I can find any possible way to put To Kill a Mockingbird on a top 5 list, I will, because that's just who I am. And finally, number 5. Number 5 is a book, actually, that hasn't come out yet, I don't believe. But it's one that I got an advanced reader copy from NetGalleon. My review of it will go up, I believe, at the end of the month. And it's called Suffer Love. And it's a book that deals with affairs and infidelity and sort of the repercussions thereof. We follow our main character, whose name is Hadley St. Clair, who is dealing with the repercussions of an affair in her own family between her parents. She's trying to find her own way, remake herself. In a lot of ways, she's looking to sort of lose herself in a lot of what she's done. And then, of course, as with so many lovely YA novels, she meets a boy. She meets Sam Bennett, who absolutely feels like is a perfect match, and she doesn't know why. But as had to be the case, Sam has his own secrets, and it might screw everything up. But it takes a really nice look at, either staying true to yourself or staying true to what you believe is right or what you find out to be right, dealing, all the things that go around with infidelities and all of that stuff. It's a really, really wonderful book. I'm excited for it to come out. Goodreads tells me that it is scheduled to come out on May 3rd, So it'll be out at the beginning of next month. My review of it will go up at the end of this month. I'm really excited for everyone else to read it. It's a fantastic book. I had a lot of fun reading it. And I've mentioned sometimes that YA romances bother me a little bit because they all have a tendency to wrap up very neatly, and no romance of that age that I ever saw or experienced ever ended up that neat. And this doesn't necessarily do that, and I like that. So that's one that I absolutely wanted to put on the list because I'm excited about it and I want to share it with you guys. But those are my top 5 books that deal with difficult topics. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear from you. Or, of course, you can tweet them at me on Twitter at KRIanFrey. Love to hear from you there as well. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. You can always subscribe for more content. I post videos twice a week. And until next time, I shall bid you adieu, and I will see you again on Tuesday for another Tuesday Talks. Bye! I can sympathize to some extent with the girl, with the past girl in 13 Reasons Why. Did I actually ever say that was the book I'm talking about? 13 Reasons Why. It's a good book. I'm apparently too distracted to say the title of books. I'm just gonna go back and redo this.